Hello, welcome back. My name is Vivian, and today I'm talking about all books I read in March. All right, so let me share my screen with you because I'm looking down at my reading journal and nobody wants to see the top of my head, right? All right. All right, so this is my March library. All the books I read, all the books I finished, and one book that I didn't finish, Building a Story Brand. So I didn't finish it because I just didn't finish it. I'm not never going to finish it. I am not the kind of reader who does not finish books, even if I'm not really liking them, and even if I'm absolutely hating them. I'll keep reading because maybe it gets better, or maybe I just feel like, okay, somebody wrote this book, somebody published it, somebody believes in it. I'm going to keep giving it a shot, right? I finish books. I know people say life is too short to read a bad book. I'm like, well, I don't really know if it's a bad book until I finish it, right? What if, like, the last chapter, everything comes together and you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest book I ever read? Has it ever happened to me? No. But I have gotten to the last chapter of a book and gone, that makes sense. This is a good book. I just wasn't getting it. So, yeah, I finished books. Now, Donald Miller, Building a Story Brand, I did not finish in March because it's a book that has homework to it, right? So you don't just read the book, you have to do the book. Well, I have to do the book. So I am still doing the book, which is why it's not finished. So stay tuned. It is a work in progress. All right. And then the other book that technically I did not finish is this one here, Mulheres que Compram Flores. And I didn't finish it because it's in Portuguese and it's going to take me a long time to finish it. It's actually going to take me until November, the end of November, to finish it, because now I have a plan to finish it. I'm going to read a chapter a week, right? So I made this plan at the end of March. And so the chapter I had to read was chapter 2. Yes, I'm not very far into it. So I finished chapter 2 and gave it 5 stars. All right. So that takes care of the bottom row of books. But the top row is what I want to talk about here. These are the novels that I read this month, right? 5 novels. Let's start in the middle, right? Because those are the books that clearly I loved the most, as you can tell by the number of stickers, right? So let's go with my favorite book of the month. Let's start with my favorite book of the month, which is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. I don't know how that book got onto my Kindle. I don't know. It wasn't recommended. I didn't write down that it was recommended to me by anyone. I didn't know anything about it before I did my March plan with me and reading journal setup, when I sort of looked up what's the book about. But wow. Like, it hardly ever happens that I just stumble into my favorite book of the year. And I don't know if it's my favorite book of the year, right? I have not done my book bracket for 2023 yet, but this one, definitely my book of the month, and definitely a book of the year contender, right? I think I even have it already on my book of the year contender list. Yeah, see, here's my book of the year contenders: January, February, and March. All right, let's get back here. So not only is it a book of the year contender, but look at this. it has 2 best main character contenders and a best supporting character contender, right? So let me tell you what this book is about, because I 100% recommend this book. This book is about a relationship. I'm not even sure if that's the right word, but a relationship that develops between Wavy and Kellen. So Wavy is 8 years old when she first meets Kellen, who is 22. Kellen works for her dad, who is he makes meth on this like sprawling farm kind of situation that is near the house where Wavy lives with her mom, who is not really present in Wavy's life so much. So Wavy's home life is not great. Wavy meets Kellen, and Kellen is 22 at the time. So Wavy's 8, Kellen's 22. And Kellen is like, I can't believe this little girl has to live like this. I'm gonna like see if I can make her life a little bit better, right? So he kind of makes sure that she's got food and that the house is clean, and he makes sure that she gets to school. And so they form this sort of friendship. And then as Wavy ages and as Kellen ages, the relationship changes. And the reason why this book is a book of the year contender for me is because even now in my brain, I don't know how I feel about this, right? I don't know how I feel about it. And I don't want to give too much of this book away, because I really think you need to read it. And I really want you to read it. And then when you do, I want to talk about it with you, because it is one of those books that I'm having this conversation in my head where this is what I think, and then this is what I think, but then there's this. But yes, this is what I'm doing in my head. This book, I mean, if you want to have a conversation at book club, this is a book to read. So, favorite characters. Like I said, 2 best main character contenders, Wavy and Kellen. Both of them are so real. That's what makes you go back and forth in your head about this, is because like you just don't know what to think about what is going on, right? So Wavy and Kellen, best main characters. But then another character that really stood out to me is Wavy's Aunt Brenda, right? So Aunt Brenda is the one who catches them, I guess, catches Wavy and Kellen in flagrante or whatever. Yeah, so she catches them. She has suspicions that this relationship is not appropriate. And then she finally catches them and does what she does. And I feel like in the book, she's a little bit written as the villain, because I think from Wavy's point of view, Aunt Brenda was the villain, but I don't know that she was. I don't think she was. And so Aunt Brenda, wow. Yeah, so much to talk about. In any event, Aunt Brenda gets a best supporting character nod on this, because she was not the only adult in the room. She was not the only person who questioned what they were seeing. But she's the one who did something about it. So, when I talk about favorite scenes in the book, I do feel like instead of writing about favorite scenes, it really, the category should be most uncomfortable scenes, because there were so many scenes that I was like, oh, this, oh no, oh no, 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 no. Yeah, so many scenes that made me uncomfortable. And so I'm going to read one little quick thing from the book, because this, I think, describes the whole thing for me. So let's go here. Right up until that moment, it was sweet and funny. Odd couple that they were, they had a real connection. Then he tugged her boot off and kissed the bottom of her bare foot. I could see him doing that kind of thing to his own kid, but she wasn't. She was somebody else's little girl. And that, I think, is kind of like how I felt most of the time when things started to get weird, right? It's like, okay, he's a family friend, he's taking care of her, but now that's a little weird. This is the story. This, like, you got to read this book. It's just, it's good. Like, it's going to make you think. It's going to make you wonder. It's like you're just going to go back and forth in your head until you drive yourself crazy. I cannot get this book out of my head. So, yeah, I 100% recommend it. I would 100% like to know what you think. I'd love to have a conversation about this. Send me a message if you want to talk about this, because I would love it. All right. The next book, I would say my next favorite book has to be The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, right? I don't think it's a book of the year contender. It might be, because it definitely, I definitely have continued to think about the book and about the characters and the things that happened in the book. But I think maybe bad luck for Addie LaRue that I read All the Ugly and Wonderful Things this month, because I cannot stop thinking about the ugly and wonderful things. All right, so Addie LaRue. This is a book that follows 23-year-old Adeline, from 1714 to the present day. So 300 years it follows her. And you're like, 300 years? How does somebody live 300 years? Well, she gets cursed, right? So in 1714, she's 23. She's supposed to get married. She doesn't want to get married. So she's praying to the gods to help her. And none of the good gods are answering. So it gets dark, which is when the bad gods come out, and a bad god shows up and is like, I hear you, I see you, I will help you. Let's make a deal. So she makes a deal where she doesn't get married. She gets to live her life on her own terms, right? Because that's what she really wants, just to live her life on her own terms. So the bad god is like, okay, you can do that, but in exchange, I get your soul, right? She sells her soul to the devil so that she can live her life on her own terms. She agrees to this. And then what happens is that as a consequence of her like wish and the curse, She lives forever as a 23-year-old woman. And nobody ever remembers her. Like as soon as she is out of sight, they forget her immediately. So she's like, the book follows her over those 300 years, like from France in 1714 through the French Revolution, to eventually she ends up in New York City, in Brooklyn. And you sort of see like how she survives, right? Because you can't rent an apartment if your landlord doesn't remember you the next day, right? Because they're like, well, you're just a freaking trespasser. Who are you in this apartment or whatever? You can't get a job, right? Because like, how do you get a job when your employer doesn't remember you the minute you leave the room, right? If you're completely wiped out of someone's brain, you can't have a job, you can't have a home, you can't have any friends because nobody remembers you. So she has this sort of like lonely existence, but she gets to do all of these things, right? So there's like the trade-off, the good and the bad. The invisible life of Addie LaRue is that she's basically invisible, right? Nobody remembers her, nobody knows her. And then one day, she's in a bookstore and steals a book. And then she goes back and goes to return the book. And the guy is like, you can't return a book that you stole. And she's like, I didn't steal this book. And he's like, yeah, you did. You were in here yesterday and you stole the book. I saw you steal the book. I remember you. And Addie's like, wait a minute. No, you don't. You do not remember me. And he's like, you were here yesterday. I remember you. And so that starts this whole thing of like, how does this guy, after 300 years, how does this guy remember her? Like, what is that about? So the rest of the book, then you figure out what that is about, like why he remembers her. And so it's a great book about like, what do you want and what would you like at your deepest core, like, and what would you trade? What kind of a deal would you make to have that thing that you want? And then what are the consequences of that? So it's a great book. I loved it. It's a book that I was able to read like easily. I was able to follow it. It all made sense to me. There were a lot of parts of it that I thought were really thought-provoking and made you go, oh my God, that would be a consequence of something that you would not have thought of, right? So again, I got Addie LaRue up for a Best Main Character nomination. And then I also have a Best Supporting Character nomination on this book too, which is B, who was one of Henry's friends that Addie meets over and over and over and over again, right? Because B never remembers her. And so B is such a funny character because every time they meet, I think she's just so funny and so consistent. And, you know, I feel like if I were Addie, I would really enjoy meeting B over and over again because she just seems like that kind of a person. So Best Supporting Character for B, Best Main Character for Addie. And then, so one of the things that I'm tracking this year for my Figgy Awards is Best Meet Cute. And I kind of didn't think this would be that hard because like I tend to read a lot of stories that would involve meet cutes. Like I like romantic stories and stories about relationships and things like that. But this is the first time that I have put this sticker down on a page. Best meet cute, right? So for me, the scene, dun, 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 the scene when Addie realizes that Henry remembers her, right? When she goes back to the bookstore to return the book, and Henry's like, I remember you. That whole scene, I was like, oh my God, I love this. I love this scene. This is like, gave me all the like, I loved it. So it is getting a nomination for Best Meet Cute. Yay. All right. So I wrote down a lot of quotes from this book. 4.5 stars. I feel like it should have gotten 5, but sitting next to All the Ugly and Wonderful Things, 4.5. But this also would be a great book for your book club because of the questions that come up in your head when you're reading it. Like this whole concept of a deal. What would be your deal? And what would be worth your soul, right? If you were going to make a deal. So anyway, those are my 2 favorite books of the month: The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. Both of them would make for great book club discussions. And if you want a book club discussion questions for either one of these books, I'm going to put a link in the I'll put a link in the description because I've got 3 things for you to talk about at your book club for each book. So check out the link in the description and snag those. All right, so I'm not going to talk about the Colleen Hoover book, November 9, because I already talked about it. Yeah, me and Tina got together on a YouTube Live and had a whole discussion about this book. So I will link to that video and you can go and watch that. So yeah, I didn't love the book. I didn't hate the book. 3.5 stars. Definitely stuff to talk about. All right, but let's talk about Fiona and Jane and People of the Book. All right, quickly, People of the Book, really good book. Really good for book club too, right? So the book is about Hannah, who is a rare book, not a dealer. She's like she analyzes and preserves old and rare books. So she is hired to work on the Sarajevo Haggadah, which is a religious text, kind of like a prayer book. But this prayer book is special, one, because it has all of these gorgeous, intricate pictures, paintings, pictures, drawings in it, right? And that makes it super rare. And then the other thing about the book is that, like, how it ended up in Sarajevo, right, during the war, is a big question, right? Like, so Hannah is hired to analyze this old book that's falling apart and to sort of try to conserve it so that it doesn't completely disintegrate and fall apart. So as she's working on the project, she notices like there's some of the clasps that hold the book together are missing. There's a piece of white hair in the binding. There's a butterfly wing from like a rare butterfly that's only in a certain part of the world. There's like grains of salt. So all of these things about the book, it's kind of a mystery, like a puzzle, like where did they come from and how did they get into this book? And so you sort of follow Hannah in the present day and how, like, what's going on in her life and what's going on as she's analyzing the book. And then you jump back in time to like 1940 Sarajevo, 1894 Vienna, 1609 Venice, 1480 Sevilla. Like, you jump back in time to all of these places that explain the butterfly wing, the clasps, there's a stain on the book. So you find out, like, where did all of those things come from? How did they get there? And all of those things have their own story, right? With their own characters and their own events. And what happens in all of those places to all of those people is as interesting, maybe more interesting than what's happening with Hannah in the present day, right? So the big story of Hannah is sort of secondary, almost, in my mind, to the smaller stories of the people of the book, right? So I liked Hannah. I thought she was a great character. She's the kind of person that I would be like, hey, I want to be your friend. I feel like we could sit and have a cocktail and talk about, like, her work on this book, her work on other books, what she was doing, how she was doing it. I feel like we would have a great time talking about all of that. I liked Hannah. But my favorite characters were the other people in the smaller stories. I really liked the slave women, the slave girl and the emir's wife who was taken as a slave, in the chapter about Sevilla, the things that happen in Sevilla. I really liked the rabbi in Venice. And to see how all of these different people, how their stories are unique. I mean, you would have so much to talk about with every chapter of this book. Like, you would just have so many things to talk about with your book club. So I think this is a great book. I totally recommend it. I totally recommend it. It's 4 stars for me. Yeah, good book, people of the book. All right. Fiona and Jane. All right, so Fiona and Jane that we read for Book Tales, it is a book about 2 women who become friends in the 2nd grade, and then they grow up, right? So the story follows them from literally 2nd grade until they're in, like, mid-20s, I think. Maybe a little bit older, late 20s, maybe. And it sort of follows them in their friendship, like how they navigate their friendship from being little girls and the things you do as little girls through, like, high school and the things you do in high school. And then when you leave home after high school and, you know, you're living in different cities and you're losing touch, but you're still back together. It deals with their friendship, female friendships, which I think is something that all of us, right, that are females anyway, we all have these friendships that, you know, we weave in and out of each other's lives and try to figure out what we are to each other in all the different stages of our lives. So I liked the book in that sense, but the thing that struck me personally about this book is that for some reason, it didn't have me thinking about my female friends. It had me thinking about my mom a lot. Yeah, like Fiona and Fiona's mom and Fiona's relationship with her mom. And it really, I'm thinking about my mom a lot. So, yeah, I don't know. If you read this book and you had the same sort of experience, can you like let me know? Because I feel like what I should have been thinking about is the friendships, but I was thinking about my mom. So, yeah, that's, whoops, not April, March. So, yeah, Fiona and Jane. We read it for the book club, for Book Tales Book Club. I think it's a great book for book club. I think especially it would be a great book for a book club, like if you're in a high school student or if you're in college or just maybe post grad. If you're in like that, I don't know, I would say 17 to 25 age range, it would be a really good book to like talk about with your friends and your book club, because you're in the middle of all of that. And I think there would be a lot of stuff to talk about. So I totally recommend it. Yeah. Yeah. So those are the books I read in March. What was the best book that you read in March? Let me know in the comments what you're reading. I'm curious and I'll check it out. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, here's a couple more videos you might want to check out. And it would be helpful for me if you would hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.